Come with me. Single dad found a paralyzed homeless girl at the bus stop, then took her home. The rain came down in sheets that November night, turning the empty bus stop into a cage of cold glass and steel. Marcus Webb sat in his idling truck, wipers beating a rhythm against the downpour when he saw her. A girl, maybe 17, slumped against the shelter wall like a discarded doll. Her wheelchair sat beside her, one wheel spinning slowly in the wind. What made him pull over wasn't the rain soaking through her thin jacket, or the way her dark hair clung to her pale face. It was her eyes. Even from across the street through the storm and the darkness, he could see them, empty, distant, like someone who'd already given up on being saved. Marcus was supposed to be home. His daughter Emma was waiting, probably microwaving another frozen dinner, doing homework at their kitchen table that still had Jen's coffee mug sitting in the same spot it had been for 8 months. 8 months since the accident. 8 months of learning how to be both parents, of failing most days, of wondering if he'd ever feel whole again. He should have kept driving. He had his own broken life to manage. But something in those eyes pulled at a thread inside him he thought had been cut long ago. He grabbed his coat and ran through the rain. Up close, she was even younger than he'd thought, her body twisted at an unnatural angle, her legs thin and motionless beneath soaked jeans. She didn't look up as his shadow fell across her, didn't flinch when he knelt down, water pooling around his knees. She just stared straight ahead, her lips slightly parted, breathing shallow and quick. "Hey," Marcus said softly, his voice nearly lost in the storm. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes shifted slowly, landing on his face with the wariness of a wounded animal. She didn't speak, didn't nod, just looked at him like he was another cruel joke the universe was playing. "I'm Marcus. I'm not going to hurt you." He glanced at the wheelchair, then back at her. "How long have you been out here?" Still nothing. But he noticed her hands then, blue-tinged, trembling, fingers curled tight against her chest. She was hypothermic, dying right here at this bus stop while the city slept and the rain washed everything away. "Okay, listen," Marcus said, making a decision that would change both their lives. "I don't know your story. I don't know how you ended up here. But you can't stay. You understand? You'll die out here tonight." He waited, searching her face for any sign of recognition. "I have a truck right there. A warm house 10 minutes away. My daughter's there. You can get dry, get warm, and then we'll figure out the rest, okay?" For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or hope so faint it was almost invisible. Her lips moved, forming words that the rain stole away. Marcus leaned closer. "What? Why?" The word came out cracked and raw, like she hadn't spoken in days. The question hit him harder than it should have. Why? Because he knew what it felt like to be broken. Because his wife had died saving a stranger's child from an oncoming car. And maybe this was the universe giving him a chance to understand why. Because this girl's eyes reminded him of his own reflection in those first terrible weeks after Jen's funeral. Because someone has to, he said simply. He didn't wait for permission. Marcus scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing, all bone and shivering flesh, and carried her to his truck. She didn't resist, didn't help, just hung limp in his arms like she'd forgotten how to hold on to anything. He settled her in the passenger seat, cranked the heat to maximum, then folded the wheelchair and threw it in the truck bed. The whole time, she watched him through the windshield, rain streaming down the glass between them, and he wondered what she saw. A savior? A fool? Another person who would eventually leave? As Marcus climbed into the driver's seat, soaked and shaking himself now, he caught her staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. The heater roared to life, filling the cab with blessed warmth, and slowly, so slowly, color began returning to her cheeks. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, pulling onto the empty street. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, "Riley. Riley," he repeated like a prayer or a promise. "Okay, Riley, let's get you home." He didn't notice the way her breath caught on that last word, or how her fingers uncurled just slightly, reaching toward the warmth pouring from the vents. He was too busy trying to figure out how he'd explain this to Emma, how he'd justify bringing a stranger into their carefully maintained grief. But as the city lights blurred past and Riley's breathing began to even out, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 8 months. Purpose. Like maybe, Just maybe he'd been at that intersection tonight for a reason neither of them understood yet. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness as they drove through quiet suburban streets. Riley pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching houses pass by. Warm lights glowing in windows, families visible inside like scenes from a life she'd long forgotten could exist. Each home was a reminder of what she'd lost. Her mother's voice singing in the kitchen, her father's laugh during Sunday football, the accident that had taken her legs and 6 months later, taken her parents' marriage. Then the foster homes, then the streets, then nothing but survival and the growing certainty that she didn't deserve to survive at all. You live far. Riley's voice was so quiet Marcus almost missed it. Just a few more minutes. He glanced over at her, this broken bird he'd picked up without thinking. You hungry? She shrugged, a gesture that seemed to cost her effort. Of course she was hungry. Her cheeks were hollow, her collarbone sharp beneath the wet fabric of her jacket. When had she last eaten? Yesterday? 2 days ago? Marcus's jaw tightened. The world was full of cruelty. He'd learned that intimately when a distracted driver had run a red light and stolen his wife from him. But seeing it embodied in this girl, this child who should have been worried about homework and first dates, not where she'd sleep or if she'd wake up, it ignited something fierce and protective in his chest that he hadn't felt since Emma was born. They pulled into the driveway of a modest, 2-story house with blue shutters. The porch light was on, and through the front window, Marcus could see Emma moving around inside. Home. The word felt different tonight, heavier with meaning. Emma Webb stood in the doorway, wearing an oversized hoodie that had belonged to her mother, arms crossed tight against her chest. 12 years old and already carrying the weight of loss like an old coat she couldn't take off. The look on her face, confusion mixed with something harder, something too old for her age, made Marcus's stomach clench. Dad? Emma's voice carried an edge Marcus had learned to recognize over the past months. The edge that meant she was scared, but would die before admitting it. Who is that? Her name is Riley, Marcus said, wheeling the chair up the ramp he'd built for Jen's mother before she passed. She needs help, Em. She was at the bus stop in the rain. So you just brought her home. Emma's eyes went wide. Dad, you don't even know her. She could be. I don't know, dangerous or... Look at her, Emma. Marcus kept his voice gentle but firm. Does she look dangerous to you? Emma did look, really look, and Marcus watched his daughter's expression shift. She'd inherited her mother's heart, too big, too open, always breaking for broken things. Riley's soaked clothes, her hollow cheeks, the way she seemed to fold in on herself like she wanted to disappear. It all registered on Emma's face in real time. The hard edge softened. Just a little, she's freezing, Emma whispered. I know. Can you grab some of your mom's clothes? And maybe heat up some soup? The mention of Jen's clothes, still hanging in the closet, still smelling faintly of her lavender perfume, made Emma's face crumple for just a second. Then she nodded and disappeared into the house. Marcus wheeled Riley inside, into the warmth and light of their small living room. The house still bore Jen's touch everywhere. The throw pillows she'd sewn, the family photos on the mantel, the bookshelf organized by color because she'd always said life needed more beauty, not more order. Riley's eyes swept across it all, and something in her expression cracked open. Just a hairline fracture, but enough for Marcus to see the grief underneath. The bathroom's down the hall, he said gently. I'll help you get there and Emma will bring clothes. Take your time. There's no rush. Riley nodded but didn't move. Her hands gripped the wheelchair's armrests so tight her knuckles had gone white. Marcus knelt down beside her, bringing himself to her eye level. Riley, you're safe here. I promise. No one's gonna hurt you. No one's going to make you leave tonight, okay? She searched his face for the lie, the angle, the inevitable betrayal. Marcus held her gaze, steady and patient, until finally, her shoulders dropped half an inch and she whispered, okay. Getting Riley cleaned up and changed took nearly an hour. Emma helped with quiet efficiency, her earlier wariness melting into something softer, more careful. She didn't ask questions, didn't push, just handed Riley clothes through the bathroom door and waited outside in case she needed help. When Riley finally emerged in Jen's old sweatpants and a flannel shirt that swallowed her thin frame, her wet hair combed back from her face, she looked younger somehow, more vulnerable, like a child playing dress-up in adult tragedy. They sat her at the kitchen table, the same table where Marcus and Emma had eaten silent dinners for months, where they'd stopped saying grace because neither of them could figure out what to be grateful for anymore. Emma ladled tomato soup into a bowl and set it in front of Riley with a gentleness that made Marcus's throat tight. His daughter, his fierce, wounded daughter, was choosing kindness over fear. Jen would have been proud. Riley stared at the soup like it might disappear if she blinked. Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon, and the first taste seemed to undo something inside her. She ate slowly, methodically, like someone who'd learned not to trust that the next meal would come. Marcus and Emma sat across from her, not eating, just present, and the silence felt less lonely than it had in months. "How old are you?" Emma asked finally, her voice soft. Riley swallowed. 17. "Almost 18. Where's your family?" "Emma." Marcus warned gently, but Riley shook her head. "It's okay." She set down her spoon, and Marcus saw her gathering courage like stones. "My parents. They're gone. I mean, they're alive, but they're not my parents anymore. Not after the accident." "What accident?" Emma leaned forward. Riley's fingers found the edge of the table, tracing the wood grain like she was reading Braille. "Car crash. 2 years ago, drunk driver ran a red light. I was in the back seat. Woke up in the hospital and couldn't feel my legs. Never walked again." Her voice was flat, practiced, like she'd told this story so many times it had lost all meaning. "My dad couldn't handle it. Started drinking. My mom, she tried, but she was drowning too. They split up. I went to live with my aunt, but she couldn't afford the medical bills and a teenager in a wheelchair. So I went into foster care." Emma's hand had found its way to her mouth, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Marcus felt his own chest constricting, remembering all the nights he'd wondered if he could handle being both parents to Emma, how close he'd come to breaking under the weight of it. The last foster home was bad, Riley continued. "The dad, She stopped, shook her head. "I left, figured the streets were safer. That was 3 months ago. 3 months. Marcus's voice came out rougher than he intended. "You've been on the streets for 3 months. In a wheelchair?" Riley met his eyes then, and in them Marcus saw a universe of pain and survival and stubborn, aching endurance. "You learn to be invisible, to find the warm spots. The shelters don't always have space, and some of them—" She trailed off. "It's easier to just keep moving." "That's not living," Emma said fiercely, tears finally spilling over. "That's not. You can't just—" "Emma's right," Marcus said. "Riley, you can't go back out there. Not tonight, not until we figure something else out." Riley's laugh was bitter and small. "Like what? Another foster home? Another family that'll realize I'm too much work?" The words hung in the air like an accusation, and Marcus felt them land in his chest with physical weight. Too much work? Is that what this girl believed about herself? That her existence was a burden too heavy for anyone to carry? He thought about Jen then, about the way she'd always seen people, not as their worst moments or their greatest needs, but as their full, complicated, beautiful selves. She would have already made up the guest room, would have already been planning doctor's appointments and school enrollment, and all the 1,000 small details that transformed a stranger into family. "You're not too much work," Marcus said firmly. "You're 17 years old and you've survived things that would break most people." "That's not weakness, Riley. That's strength." Something in her face shifted, a wall crumbling brick by brick. Her lower lip trembled, and she bit down hard to stop it. "Stay," Emma said suddenly, her voice clear and certain. "Just stay, we have a guest room. Dad works from home, so someone would be here. And She glanced at her father, then back to Riley. "I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning. After Mom died, I felt like that every day. Still do sometimes. But Dad didn't give up on me. So we're not giving up on you." Marcus's heart cracked open at his daughter's words, at the casual mention of Jen that would have been impossible a month ago. Emma was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. And somehow, impossibly, this broken girl at their kitchen table was part of that healing. "It's just for tonight," Marcus said, though even as he spoke, he knew it was a lie. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow, okay? Riley looked between them. This single father and his grieving daughter who were offering her something she'd stopped believing existed. Safety, kindness, a chance. Her face crumpled and she pressed her palms against her eyes, shoulders shaking with silent sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient. Emma moved around the table and wrapped her arms around Riley's shoulders, and Marcus joined them, the three of them forming a small, imperfect circle of shared grief and fragile hope. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean, and inside, in a house that had known too much loss, something new and tender began to take root. The first week was harder than Marcus had expected. Riley moved through their home like a ghost, present but not quite there, touching nothing she didn't have to, speaking only when spoken to. She'd wake up before dawn. Marcus would hear the soft creak of her wheelchair in the hallway, and sit by the living room window, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood like she was trying to memorize it before it disappeared. He'd find her there, wrapped in one of Jen's old quilts, her face unreadable, and he'd wonder what memories were playing behind her eyes. Emma tried everything. She'd show Riley her favorite books, play music she thought she'd like, tell terrible jokes that made Marcus groan but failed to crack Riley's careful mask. The girl would smile politely, say thank you, then retreat back into herself like a turtle into its shell. It wasn't rudeness, Marcus realized. It was self-preservation. Riley had learned not to get attached because attachment meant eventual loss, and she'd lost too much already. The turning point came on day 8. Marcus had left Emma and Riley alone while he ran to the store, trusting his daughter's good sense and Riley's general stillness. He returned to find Riley's wheelchair empty in the living room, and Emma's panicked voice calling from upstairs. Dad! Dad, help! Marcus took the stairs 3 at a time, his heart in his throat, and found Emma on her knees outside the guest room bathroom. The door was locked, and from inside came the sound of Riley's ragged breathing, fast and shallow, the unmistakable rhythm of a panic attack. Riley! Marcus knocked hard on the door. Riley, can you hear me? Open the door. She can't, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. She tried to reach something on the top shelf and fell out of her chair. She's been in there for 20 minutes. She won't let me help. She just keeps saying she's sorry. Marcus's chest tightened. He pressed his forehead against the door, forcing his voice to stay calm. Riley, I'm going to break this lock. I know you don't want help. I know you're scared, but I can't leave you in there. Do you understand? Silence. Then so faint he almost missed it. I'm sorry. You don't need to be sorry. Just hold on. It took one hard shoulder check to pop the flimsy bathroom lock. Riley was on the floor, curled against the bathtub, her useless legs twisted beneath her at an angle that made Marcus wince. Her face was blotchy and wet, her breathing still coming in gasps, and in her eyes was the same terror he'd seen at the bus stop, the absolute certainty that she'd done something unforgivable. Marcus knelt down slowly, keeping his movements visible and unthreatening. Hey, it's okay. You're okay. I'm not, Riley gasped. I'm not okay. I can't do anything. I can't even reach a stupid towel without falling. I'm useless. Stop! Marcus's voice cut through her spiral. You're not useless. You fell. People fall. Doesn't mean anything except that you fell, but you had to break the door. You had to come save me again. I'm just a burden. You should have left me at that bus stop. The words landed like punches, and Marcus saw Emma flinch behind him. He sat down fully on the bathroom floor, ignoring the discomfort, making himself smaller, less threatening. Riley, look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. Do you know why I stopped that night? It wasn't pity. It wasn't even kindness, not really. It was recognition. I saw someone who was drowning, and I remembered what that felt like. Riley's breathing was slowing, but her hands still trembled. You don't know what it's like. You're right. I don't know what it's like to be paralyzed, to lose your mobility, your independence. But I know what it's like to lose everything that defined you. My wife didn't just die, Riley. She was my best friend, my partner, the person who made me want to be better. When she was gone, I forgot how to exist. I'd wake up and not remember how to brush my teeth, how to make breakfast, how to be a father. He glanced back at Emma, who was crying silently in the doorway. I failed at all of it for months. Still do most days. That's different, Riley whispered, is it? Because from where I'm sitting, we're both people who had our lives ripped apart and are trying to figure out how to build something new from the pieces. The only difference is you've had to do it alone, and that's not fair. It was never fair. Something broke in Riley's face then, and she covered it with her hands, sobs finally escaping in great, gulping waves. Marcus scooted closer and pulled her against his chest, and she clung to him like a drowning person to driftwood. Emma moved into the bathroom too, sitting on Riley's other side, and the three of them stayed there on the cold tile floor until Riley's tears ran dry and exhaustion took over. That night, after he'd helped Riley back into bed and made sure she was comfortable, Marcus found Emma in her room, staring at the ceiling. "You okay, kiddo?" Emma turned to look at him, and her expression was older than it had been that morning. Mom would have known what to say to her, to make her feel better. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed. Maybe, or maybe she would have done exactly what you did, stayed there, been present, shown her she's not alone. That's what love looks like, Em. Not having the perfect words, but showing up anyway. Do you think she'll stay? Emma asked quietly. Riley, I mean. Do you think she'll want to stay? It was the question Marcus had been avoiding, because wanting Riley to stay meant wanting to take on the responsibility of another broken person when he barely knew how to manage his own brokenness. It meant physical therapy appointments, doctor visits, wheelchair maintenance, navigating the foster system, or possibly adoption. It meant opening himself up to more potential loss when he was still bleeding from the last one. But it also meant watching his daughter come alive again. Meant hearing laughter in a house that had been silent for too long. Meant giving Riley something she deserved and had been denied. A home. I don't know, Marcus said honestly, but I think we should give her every reason to want to. Emma nodded solemnly. Then, Dad, I'm glad you stopped that night.
At the bus stop.
I know it's hard and scary and we don't know what we're doing, but I'm glad. Marcus kissed the top of her head, throat too tight for words. The next morning, Marcus woke to the smell of burning toast and the sound of laughter. He stumbled into the kitchen to find Emma and Riley at the stove, flour dusting their clothes, attempting to make pancakes with wildly uneven results. Riley was smiling, actually smiling, as she tried to flip one and sent it sailing onto the floor instead. This is a disaster, Emma giggled. Total catastrophe, Riley agreed. And the ease in her voice made something warm bloom in Marcus's chest. Need help? He offered. No, they said in unison, and then dissolved into laughter again. Marcus made coffee and watched his girls. And when had he started thinking of Riley that way? Navigate the kitchen with chaotic enthusiasm. This was what healing looked like, he realized. Not a straight line, not a sudden transformation, but these small moments of lightness breaking through the heavy dark. After breakfast, after they'd cleaned up the considerable mess and Emma had gone to do homework, Riley wheeled over to where Marcus sat on the couch with his laptop. She fidgeted with her hands, nervous energy radiating off her. Thank you, she said finally, for yesterday, for not making me feel like I was stupid. You're not stupid, I know. I don't know. I'm working on knowing. She took a breath. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Most people would have called social services and washed their hands of the whole situation. But you're letting me stay. You're feeding me and clothing me and treating me like I matter. Why? Marcus closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. It was a fair question, one he'd been asking himself in the quiet hours before sleep. When Jen died, people kept telling me that time heals all wounds, that I'd move on, find a new normal. All those useless platitudes that don't mean anything when you're drowning in grief. But one thing someone said stuck with me. They said that the best way to honor the people we've lost is to live the way they taught us to live. Jen saw people, Riley, really saw them. She never walked past suffering without stopping. Never turned away from someone who needed help. It cost her life, actually. She died pushing a kid out of the way of a car. Riley's eyes widened. I didn't know. How could you? But that's who she was. And I spent 8 months being angry at her for it. For choosing a stranger over staying alive for us. But then I saw you at that bus stop and I realized She didn't choose death. She chose life. Someone else's life. And if I want Emma to grow up knowing her mother mattered, if I want to believe Jen's death meant something, then I have to make the same choice. I have to choose life, your life, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Tears were sliding down Riley's cheeks again, but these were different, softer, less like grief and more like gratitude. I don't know how to be part of a family anymore, she whispered. I forgot how. Then we'll remember together, Marcus said simply. All three of us. 3 weeks into Riley's stay, the fragile peace shattered. Marcus had known it was coming, had seen the signs in the way Riley grew quieter as each day passed, in the way she'd started talking about when I leave instead of if I leave. What he hadn't expected was how it would happen. It started with a phone call. Marcus was in his home office working on architectural plans for a client when he heard Riley's voice rise in the living room. Not loud, but sharp, brittle with panic. He found her white-knuckled around her phone, staring at the screen like it was a bomb about to detonate. Riley, what's wrong? She looked up at him, and the terror in her eyes sent ice through his veins. It's my caseworker. She found me. She knows I'm here. Marcus's stomach dropped. Of course. He'd been so focused on the day-to-day, on making sure Riley was fed and safe and starting to heal, that he hadn't thought about the legal reality. Riley was a minor in the foster system, technically a runaway, and while Marcus's intentions were good, he had no legal right to keep her. Okay, he said, trying to project a calm he didn't feel. Okay, we'll figure this out. What did she say? She's coming tomorrow to assess the situation, to see if I can stay or if I need to go back into placement. Riley's voice cracked. Marcus, I can't go back. I can't. You won't have to. We'll talk to her, explain everything. Explain what? Riley's laugh was harsh. That you picked up a homeless girl and brought her to your house without vetting or authorization? That you've been harboring a runaway for weeks? They'll remove me so fast your head will spin, and they'll probably investigate you for God knows what. She wasn't wrong. Marcus knew how these things worked. He'd seen enough friends navigate the foster system to know it was designed with good intentions, but executed with bureaucratic ruthlessness. Good people got tangled up in red tape all the time. And Riley was vulnerable, traumatized. Exactly the kind of case that would raise every red flag in the system. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus found Riley packing her few belongings into a garbage bag. She moved mechanically, her face carefully blank, and it was that blankness that broke his heart more than tears would have. What are you doing? Leaving. She didn't look up. It's better if I go now before the caseworker comes. That way you and Emma don't get in trouble. Riley, stop. I should have left weeks ago. I let myself believe. She shook her head. Doesn't matter. This is how it always goes. I should have known better. Marcus crossed the room and grabbed the bag from her hands. You're not leaving. You can't stop me, you're right. I can't, but I can ask you to trust me. One more day. Let me talk to the caseworker. Let me see if there's a way to make this work legally. Riley finally looked at him, and her eyes were hollow again, all the progress of the past weeks erased. There isn't. There's never a way. The system doesn't work for kids like me. Then we'll break the system, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. Riley, Emma has started laughing again. Do you understand? For 8 months my daughter barely smiled, and now she laughs every day because you're here. Because you make her feel less alone in her grief. And you're starting to heal too. I see it. The way you joke with Emma. The way you've started talking about maybe going back to school. The way you don't flinch every time someone touches you. You think I'm going to let that go without a fight? It's not your fight. Yes, it is. The moment I brought you home, it became my fight. So please just stay one more day. Give me a chance to fix this. Riley studied his face for a long moment, searching for the inevitable disappointment, the moment when he'd realized she was too much trouble. When she didn't find it, something in her posture softened. Just slightly. One more day, she whispered. Marcus spent that entire night on the phone and online, researching kinship care, emergency custody, foster-to-adopt programs. He called a lawyer friend who specialized in family law. He documented everything, The night he'd found Riley, her medical condition, the progress she'd made, Emma's improved mental health. He built a case like he was building a house, every piece carefully placed, structurally sound, designed to withstand inspection. When the caseworker arrived the next afternoon, Marcus was ready. Her name was Patricia Chen, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened as Marcus explained everything, took notes as Riley spoke about her time on the streets and her reasons for running. Then she asked to speak with Emma. Marcus waited in the living room with Riley, both of them tense and silent. Through the kitchen door, he could hear Emma's voice, passionate and clear, telling Ms. Chen about her mom's death, about how empty the house had felt, about how Riley had helped her remember how to be happy. "She's like a sister," Emma was saying. "No, she is my sister. And my dad. He's good at this. He's good at taking care of people. He took care of Mom when she was sick, and he takes care of me, and he's taking care of Riley. We're a family now. Please don't break us apart." When Ms. Chen emerged from the kitchen, her expression was unreadable. She sat down across from Marcus and Riley, folded her hands on her lap, and sighed deeply. "This is highly irregular," she began, and Marcus felt his heart sink. "Mr. Webb, you understand that harboring a runaway minor, even with good intentions, puts you in a complicated legal position. And Riley, running from your placement puts you in violation of your foster care agreement." "I understand," Marcus said. But Ms. Chen held up a hand. "Let me finish, however." She turned to Riley. "Your file shows multiple placement failures, reports of unsafe conditions, and declining mental and physical health. And in the past 3 weeks, she consulted her notes. You've seen a doctor for the first time in 6 months. You've gained 8 pounds. Your case file notes indicate improved affect and engagement. Whatever Mr. Webb is doing seems to be working where the system has failed." Riley's hand found Marcus's, gripping tight. "I'm not going to remove you today," Ms. Chen continued, "but we need to do this properly. Mr. Webb, you'll need to apply for emergency foster care certification. It's a streamlined process given Riley's age and specific needs, but there will be home visits, background checks, interviews. Riley, you'll need to agree to stay in placement and work with me on creating a permanent plan, whether that's reunification with family, long-term foster care, or eventual adoption." "Adoption?" Riley's voice was barely a whisper. Ms. Chen's expression softened. "You're almost 18. Most teens your age in the system are planning for independence, not adoption. But if Mr. Webb is willing and if you want a permanent family, we can explore that option." Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle over him. Adoption. The word was enormous, filled with legal implications and emotional commitment, and the terrifying promise of forever. Emma would get a sister. He would get, what? Another daughter? Another chance to fail? Another person he could lose? But when he looked at Riley, at the hope dawning fragile and afraid in her eyes, he knew there was only one answer. "I'm willing," he said. "Whatever it takes." "I'm willing," the tears came then, sudden and overwhelming. Riley collapsed forward and Marcus caught her, held her while she sobbed into his shoulder, all the fear and relief and desperate, aching hope she'd been holding back for years. Ms. Chen discreetly excused herself to give them privacy, and Emma burst from the kitchen, throwing her arms around both of them. "She's staying?" Emma asked. "She's staying," Marcus confirmed. "For real? Like forever?" Riley pulled back, wiping her eyes, and laughed, a sound wet and broken but genuine. "Maybe, if your dad doesn't realize he's crazy for taking me on." "He's already crazy," Emma said matter-of-factly. "He listens to terrible 80s music and burns everything he cooks. But he's our kind of crazy now." The certification process was brutal. Home visits every week, interviews with neighbors and Emma's teachers, financial reviews, medical evaluations for Riley. Marcus had to take training classes on trauma-informed parenting and disability advocacy. The house had to pass safety inspections. Their entire lives were laid bare for bureaucratic scrutiny, every flaw examined and catalogued. Through it all, Riley waited with the patience of someone who'd learned not to count on anything. She participated in every interview, saw every specialist, followed every rule with meticulous care, but Marcus saw the way she held herself back, never quite unpacking all her belongings, never quite claiming the guest room as fully hers. She was still ready to run, still convinced that the other shoe would drop. It finally did, 6 weeks later, but not in the way any of them expected. Marcus came home from a grocery run to find Riley in the driveway, her wheelchair positioned at the bottom of the ramp, staring at a car he didn't recognize. A man stood beside it, mid-50s, weathered face, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the resemblance. The same dark hair, the same sharp cheekbones. Riley's father. Marcus's protective instincts flared immediately. He moved between them, placing himself as a barrier, every muscle tensed. "Can I help you?" The man looked at him, then passed him to Riley, whose face had gone completely white. "I'm looking for my daughter." "Riley," Marcus said carefully, not taking his eyes off the man. "Do you want me to call someone?" "No." Her voice was small, childlike. "No, it's okay," but it clearly wasn't okay. Riley's hands were shaking so badly, she could barely keep them on the wheelchair's controls. The man, her father, seemed to crumple under her gaze. "Riley, He stopped, started again. "I've been looking for you for months. Your caseworker finally told me where you were. I needed to see you." "Why?" The single word cut like glass. "Why now? Where were you when I was sleeping at bus stops? Where were you when I was in foster homes that didn't give a damn? Where were you, Dad?" He flinched at the title, like it physically hurt. "I was drunk. I was angry. I was a coward." His voice broke. "I was every terrible thing you think I am. When your mom left, when you went into care, I told myself you were better off without me, that I'd just screw you up worse, so I let you go." "You didn't let me go," Riley said, and Marcus heard steel in her voice he'd never heard before. "You abandoned me. There's a difference, I know. God, Riley, I know. And I can't take that back. I can't fix what I did, but I'm sober now. 8 months clean. I've got a job, an apartment, I'm in therapy, He swallowed hard. "I'm trying to be the father I should have been 2 years ago." The silence stretched between them, thick with history and hurt. Marcus wanted to intervene, to protect Riley from whatever pain this man might inflict, but he also understood that this was her moment, her choice. All he could do was stand ready. 8 months, Riley finally said. "That's how long I've been on my own. You got sober while I was sleeping in doorways. I know. You got your life together while mine was falling apart. I know. And now you show up here, at the first stable place I've had in 2 years, and you want, what, forgiveness? A second chance? For me to come back?" Her father's face crumpled completely. Tears tracked down his weathered cheeks. "No, I just wanted to see that you're okay. That you're safe. That's all. I don't deserve anything more than that." Riley stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she wheeled herself forward, past Marcus's protective stance until she was directly in front of her father. Marcus's heart hammered, ready to step in if needed. "I'm not okay," Riley said quietly. "I'm pretty far from okay. I'm paralyzed. I'm traumatized, I have nightmares every night, and I don't trust anyone except the people in that house." She gestured back at Marcus. "But I'm safe. For the first time in 2 years, I'm safe. And I'm starting to believe that maybe I deserve to be safe." "You do," her father whispered. "You deserve everything good in the world, Riley girl." The childhood nickname broke something in Riley. Her face contorted, years of abandoned grief rushing to the surface. "You don't get to call me that. You lost the right to call me that. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." They stayed like that, father and daughter separated by 2 years of pain and mistakes, and Marcus felt like he was witnessing something sacred and terrible. Finally, Riley spoke again. "I don't forgive you. I can't, not yet. Maybe not ever, but..." She took a shuddering breath. "But I'm glad you're sober. I'm glad you're trying. And maybe someday we can talk. Really talk. But not now. Not yet." Her father nodded, crying openly now. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." He started to reach for her, then stopped himself, letting his hand fall back to his side. "The caseworker has my information. If you ever want to call or see me or anything, I'll be there. I promise." "Promises don't mean much anymore," Riley said softly. "But I'll remember." Her father got back in his car, and Marcus watched him drive away before turning to Riley. She sat very still in her wheelchair, staring at the spot where the car had been, her face unreadable. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "No." Riley's voice was distant. "But I will be." Emma appeared in the doorway, having watched the whole exchange from inside. She came down the ramp and wrapped her arms around Riley's shoulders from behind, resting her chin on Riley's head. "That was really brave," Emma said. "It was really hard," Riley corrected. "Brave things usually are." That night, Marcus found Riley in her room, finally unpacking the last of her belongings, hanging up the clothes Emma had insisted they buy, placing books on the shelf, putting up a poster Emma had given her, claiming the space as hers. "I thought you might want to go back," Marcus said from the doorway. "With your dad. If he's really getting better." Riley turned to look at him and her eyes were clear, certain. "This is my home now. He's my father and maybe someday we'll have something again. But you're my family. You and Emma. You're the ones who were there when I needed someone. That matters more than blood." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "The certification came through today. Official foster placement. You're legally part of this household now. And the adoption, whenever you're ready, no rush. But it's an option if you want it." Riley wheeled over to him, reached up and took his hand. "I want it. I want all of it. The permanent placement, the adoption, the whole complicated mess. I want to be a Webb." "You already are," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug. "You have been since that first night?" Spring came to their neighborhood in an explosion of cherry blossoms and new beginnings. Riley had been with them for 6 months now, and the house had transformed in ways both visible and invisible. The guest room was now Riley's room, decorated with art she'd started creating in the therapy sessions Marcus had found for her. The dinner table was louder, filled with Emma and Riley's constant banter and Marcus's terrible dad jokes. The calendar on the fridge was covered in appointments, physical therapy for Riley, grief counseling for all of them, doctor visits, school enrollment meetings for Riley's return to education. Life was chaotic and complicated, and nothing like the quiet, grief-stricken existence Marcus and Emma had maintained before. It was better, messy and imperfect and undeniably better. The adoption hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in late April. Marcus had taken the day off work, and Emma had gotten permission to miss school. They dressed carefully. Marcus in the suit he'd worn to Jen's funeral, now worn for something joyful instead. Emma in a blue dress that made her look impossibly grown up. Riley in clothes they'd bought together, nervous and excited and terrified all at once. The courthouse was less intimidating than Marcus had feared. Judge Sarah Martinez was a woman in her 60s with warm eyes and a reputation for caring deeply about the children who came through her courtroom. She reviewed the paperwork while they sat in quiet anticipation, and then she looked up at them with a small smile. "This is an unusual case," she began, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. "We don't often see adoption proceedings for teenagers, especially teenagers who've been in the system as long as Riley has. Most families want younger children, babies they can raise from the beginning. So I have to ask," she turned to Marcus, "Mr. Webb, why this child? Why now?" Marcus had prepared for this question, had rehearsed answers about responsibility and compassion, and doing the right thing. But sitting in that courtroom with Riley beside him and Emma pressed against his other side, all the practiced words fell away. "Because she's already my daughter," he said simply. "I didn't know that the night I found her. I thought I was just helping someone in crisis. But she came into our lives and she fit." She made Emma laugh again. She reminded me that life continues even after devastating loss. She showed me that family isn't just about blood or legal documents. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses to love even when it's hard. His voice roughened. "Riley chose us just as much as we chose her. This adoption isn't me saving her. It's us becoming what we already are, a family." Judge Martinez's eyes were suspiciously bright. She turned to Emma. "And you, young lady, how do you feel about gaining a sister?" Emma sat up straighter, and Marcus saw so much of Jen in her in that moment. The fierce determination, the open heart. "My mom died saving a stranger's kid. For a long time I was angry about that. I couldn't understand why she'd choose someone else over staying with us. But then Riley came and I realized Mom didn't choose that kid over us. She chose life. She chose to be the kind of person who stops when someone needs help. And if we didn't take Riley in, if we didn't become her family, then what was the point of Mom's sacrifice? Riley isn't replacing Mom, nobody could. But she's proof that Mom's way of living mattered. That choosing love matters. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the court reporter was sniffling. Judge Martinez turned finally to Riley. Riley, you're almost 18. In a few months, you'll age out of the system entirely. You could choose independence, start your life as a legal adult. Why do you want this adoption? Riley had been quiet through the whole proceeding, her hands twisted in her lap, but now she looked up and met the judge's eyes directly. Because I lost my family once, and it almost killed me. Not the accident that took my legs, that was just physical. But losing my parents, being shuffled through homes where I was just another case file, sleeping on streets where no one even saw me. That's what almost killed me. She glanced at Marcus, at Emma. These people saw me. When I was at my absolute lowest, when I'd given up on everything, Marcus stopped. He could have called someone else, passed the responsibility along. But he stopped. He brought me home. And Emma taught me how to laugh again, how to hope again. They gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. The belief that I'm worth loving. Riley's voice broke, but she pushed forward. I want this adoption because I want it to be legal, official, permanent. I want my last name to be Webb. I want to be Emma's sister, not just in our hearts, but on paper. I want to be able to say my dad and my sister, and know that no one can take that away from me ever again. I've spent 2 years being nobodies. I want to be somebody's. I want to be theirs. Judge Martinez had to take a moment to compose herself. She signed several documents, stamped them with official seals, and then smiled at them with genuine warmth. Then it is my honor and privilege to grant this adoption. As of today, Riley Webb, you are legally and permanently the daughter of Marcus Webb and the sister of Emma Webb. Congratulations to you all. The moment the gavel fell, Emma launched herself at Riley, nearly knocking the wheelchair over with the force of her hug. Marcus wrapped his arms around both his daughters, both of them, legally and truly now, and felt something inside him that had been broken since Jen's death finally start to mend. Outside the courthouse, they took photos on the steps. Riley holding her adoption certificate like a diploma, Emma with her arms around Riley's shoulders, Marcus standing behind them both with a smile that reached all the way to his eyes for the first time in almost a year. A family, official and complete. They went to Riley's favorite restaurant to celebrate, the little Italian place where the owner had learned to make her wheelchair accessible and always gave them extra breadsticks. Over pasta and laughter, they talked about the future. Riley wanted to finish high school, maybe go to community college. Emma wanted to try out for the soccer team now that she felt steady enough emotionally. Marcus wanted to plan a vacation, something they could all do together, the first trip for their new family. As the sun set and they drove home, Marcus caught Riley's reflection in the rearview mirror. She was looking out the window at the familiar streets, and on her face was an expression of such perfect peace that it made his chest ache. This was what healing looked like. Not perfect, not linear, but real. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Riley found Marcus on the back porch, where he often sat with his coffee, looking at the stars and thinking about Jen. She wheeled herself outside and sat beside him in comfortable silence. "Do you think she'd be proud?" Riley asked finally.
"Your wife."
"Of what you did. Taking me in." Marcus considered the question seriously. He could almost feel Jen there beside them, her presence in the cherry blossom scent on the wind, in the warmth of the spring evening, in the way his heart had learned to open again. "Yeah," he said, "I think she'd be proud. Not because I saved you, I didn't really. You saved yourself just by surviving. But I think she'd be proud that I stopped when I saw someone drowning, that I reached out instead of looking away. That's what she always did. Reach out. I wish I could have known her. She would have loved you. She had this thing about strays, always bringing home injured birds, befriending the lonely kids at Emma's school, volunteering at shelters. She saw people's potential, not their pain." Marcus smiled at the memory. "She would have taken one look at you and known exactly what I know now, that you're stronger than your circumstances, braver than you believe, and deserving of every good thing. I'm not strong, Riley said quietly. I'm still scared all the time. Scared I'll wake up and this will all be gone. Scared I'll do something to mess it up. Scared that being scared doesn't mean you're not strong, Marcus interrupted gently. Riley, you survived 2 years of hell. You're here, you're healing, you're learning to trust again. That's not weakness, that's courage. Riley was quiet for a long moment, staring up at the stars. Then, thank you for stopping that night, for not giving up on me, for making me your daughter. Thank you. Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. Thank you for staying, for fighting, for becoming part of this family. You saved us too, you know. Emma and me. We were drowning in grief, going through motions without really living. You reminded us what it means to fight for life, what it means to choose love even when it's hard. They sat together as night deepened around them, father and daughter, two people who'd been broken in different ways, finding wholeness in each other. Inside, they could hear Emma singing off-key to music in her room, a sound that had been absent from the house for so long, Marcus had forgotten how beautiful it was. This was home now. Not the building with its blue shutters and comfortable rooms, but this, the three of them together, messy and imperfect and absolutely right. A single dad who'd learned to be more, a girl who'd lost everything and found it again in unexpected places, and Emma, the bridge between them, the heart that had kept beating even when it was broken. Marcus thought about that rainy November night, about the choice he'd made to pull over instead of driving past. How different all their lives would be if he'd made a different choice. How much they would have lost by never finding each other. You know what Jen used to say, Marcus said suddenly. She said that we're all just walking each other home. That life is about showing up for people when they need it most. Being the light when someone else's has gone out. Didn't understand what she meant, not really, until you. What do you understand now? That home isn't a place. It's people. It's choosing to show up. It's staying even when it's hard. It's looking at someone who's drowning and diving in after them because that's what love does. It reaches out. It holds on. It refuses to let go. Marcus turned to look at Riley fully. You're home now, Riley, not as a guest, not temporarily. You're home and you're staying, and that's forever. Do you understand? Riley's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I understand. Good. Now let's go inside. Your sister's probably wondering where we are, and I promised her we'd watch that movie she's been going on about. They went inside together, into the warmth and light and noise of their home. Emma was sprawled on the couch, remote in hand, already queuing up the movie. She made room for Riley's wheelchair beside her and patted the spot on her other side for Marcus. Finally, Emma said dramatically. I've been waiting forever. It's been 5 minutes, Riley laughed. 5 minutes too long. Now come on, it's starting. Marcus settled into his spot, one daughter on each side, and felt the last piece of his broken heart slide into place. The road here had been paved with loss and pain, and more tears than he'd thought possible. But it had led them here, to this moment, to this family that shouldn't work on paper but worked perfectly in practice. Outside, spring rain began to fall, gentle and cleansing, washing the world clean. Inside, 3 people who'd found each other in the darkness sat together in the light, bound not by blood but by something stronger, choice, love, and the simple, profound act of showing up when it mattered most. Riley was home. Emma was healing. Marcus was learning to live again instead of just surviving. And somewhere in the space between stars and memories, Jen was smiling. This was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but this, the everyday choice to stay, to care, to be family. A single dad who stopped at a bus stop, paralyzed girl who dared to hope, a grieving daughter who opened her heart one more time, and the beautiful, messy, imperfect home they built together.